It's Tuesday, and we have Jonathan Corpina here to do a different kind of interview. Jonathan, thank you so much for opening up the mic to the viewers yesterday on Twitter. I'm going to go over their viewer questions.
All right, let's go. Let's get at them.
It's a great idea. Okay, so I'm gonna read them, and I'll put their tweet up on the screen. On June 5th, you recommended staying away from the financials. Is this still the case? There have been some low PE ratios out there, respectfully.
I think that still is a sector that you kind of have to sit on the sidelines and watch, right? We've been continually talking about interest rates and what the Fed is going to do there. The rhetoric and the blueprint, the script that we get out of Washington remains the same. And that sector really hasn't moved that much since June. I think it's down very slightly. So I think you have to wait this out at least another week to see what the Fed does next week, what their outlook is for moving forward. And I think that's when investors should feel a little bit more comfortable to get back into that sector.
All right, and that obviously is from a fan citing the exact date of a Jonathan Corpina interview. We love them. Okay, next question. I've heard some under the radar talk about it since we're in the digital age and all, that we're getting really close to having 24-hour markets Sunday night through Friday's close. Is that true?
Well, I think, as technology has expanded over time, we're somewhat very close to that, right? At this point, I mean, you can trade S&P futures over an extended period of time. You can trade U.S. markets over an extended period of time. Whether we go a full 24-hour cycle within the U.S., I don't know if we're really ready to get there yet. We've discussed this over time at somewhat high levels, and if the need is there, I think it'll be really be reviewed. But at this point right now, I think investors have done a pretty good job themselves trading, pre-market and after hours, but not fully through the night.
If that does become the case, I will be long Starbucks because I'll definitely need some coffee if that happens. Okay, next question. Jonathan, do you think situations where people make money from companies that lose money is normal? Are those the characteristics of an investment or a scam? And they're citing Zillow and Tesla in their tweet.
I don't know. I would go as far as saying, it's a scam, but it just definitely reminds me back in the technology bubble days when there were companies that were coming public that had no earnings. They were losing money, and the stock prices continue to rise higher and higher. Now, it's just a question of, two things. Do you think this is a company that will be able to be profitable one day? Or two is, if you're trading the stock, you have to understand that bubble can burst very quickly. So I think if you relate it to what we're seeing now, yes, there have been some companies out there that are not profitable yet. And I think investors use those products and believes in the products. But I think from a business fundamental point of view, it's going to take time for those companies to get profitable. Is that somewhat of a scam? I wouldn't call it a scam. I would just call it more of a high flyer.
A high flyer. I'm sure you're referencing back then the .com era.
Yep. I mean, every day we would come in, there'd be a stock that would be up, 300% that we've never heard of before, and they were waiting for some FDA ruling that never came through. But you have to understand the animal that you're getting into. Once again, relating that to today when you're talking about, Tesla and Uber and some other companies, I think those are completely separate, put them in a completely separate category as opposed to those microchip stocks way back when.
Oh, great. I love this because we're getting some questions out that I wouldn't normally ask you. So it's nice. Hot mic. All right, next question. How long will it be before any Fed chair, Powell or otherwise, finally admits there is a third mandate to support stock prices?
Yeah, I thought that was a really good question. I don't think that will ever happen. I don't think they will ever fully come out and disclose that. But the fact of the matter is, I think we know deep down inside what the Fed is looking to do and what our U.S. government does as far as, stimulus and trying to help support our economy and help support our markets at the right time. So as long as you know that and you're on board with that, I think you're in the right place to investing. If you think that that's not happening, or if you think that they're going to come out and at some point admit that this is their game plan, that's not going to happen. So you might be shifting your attention elsewhere.
Yeah, it's always been in our conscious. Let's be honest here. Jonathan, do you follow Ripple XRP, and what are your thoughts on that?
I don't. I've been trying to really educate myself on that. And I know there was another question in there about cryptocurrencies. The one thing I can say about that is I am not a big fan of investing in asset classes that have little to no regulation surrounding them. And I think, yes, it's become very popular. It's become a mechanism in which individuals use to transfer money back and forth, merchants. So we continue to see that grow and the popularity grow. But for myself personally, until there's a little bit more, deeper rules and regulations on it, I'm not going to get my toe too far into those waters just yet. We watch these conferences. We continue to see these interviews where where government officials, from the president to the SEC, keep getting questioned on cryptocurrencies and what that platform is going to look like moving forward. And they too really haven't fully committed in their verbiage as to what that is going to look like in the future and how regulations are going to come into play there. So that leads me to think that there's clearly many conversations going on behind the scenes, but yet they're not really convinced that this is where we're going to be in the next 5-10 years.
Well, I'm glad that we had one of those questions in there. It's very important. Last question, Jonathan. If I should sell all of my Apple stock before the Eagles play the Giants in New Jersey to make a bet?
That's coming from I saw that tweet. That's coming from a dear friend of mine. He and I are having dinner down in Philly next week. He's going to pay for that one. He likes to rub in all the times that the Eagles have embarrassed the New York Giants. So I'm not even going to justify and answer that question.
All right, well, I have one more question then. What's going to be for dinner?
He's taking me out to a good steak place in Philly.
You got to have steak in Philly. Jonathan, thank you so much. I hope we do this again. Let's hit the trading floor.
Yep, thank you very much.